The chosen sacrifice asterisk. The crowd gathered under the purple sky. Buzzing with excitement, giant screens showed the gate of the arena, where someone was about to be thrown in. Bright lights flashed and loud music played, but it couldn't cover the fear in her eyes. She stood alone near the gate, hands tied, legs shaking. Her skin was pale blue, eyes glowing softly. She looked young, barely older than a teenager. Her name was Nira, and she had been chosen. Not for honor, not for justice, but as a sacrifice. The monster inside the arena was ancient, a predator. From a long-forgotten war. It had no name, only hunger. Once a week, someone was thrown inside to feed it. A tradition, the elders said, to keep it sleeping. But this time, something was wrong. Nira had done nothing. No crime, no betrayal. But someone with power had pointed at her. And that was enough. She had screamed, cried, begged. But no one listened. Her voice was drowned by the crowd's cheers. Far above, in the shadowed stands, a human watched. His name was Eli. A maintenance worker, just another face no one noticed. He came to the arena every week, not to watch the deaths, but to fix the broken wires and dying lights after the show. But today, he had come earlier. Something had pulled him here. Eli leaned on the railing, staring at the girl below. Her face reminded him of someone, a child from Earth, lost during war. Maybe it was the fear in her eyes, or the way she held her breath as the gate creaked open. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. The ground trembled, metal groaned, and the gate began to rise. A deep growl echoed from within the arena pit. Dust fell from the high walls. The crowd went silent. All eyes focused on the moment the beast would appear. Nira stepped back, her legs giving out. She fell to her knees, tears running down her cheeks. She whispered something, maybe a prayer, maybe a goodbye. Her body shook, but no one moved to help her, except Eli. He didn't know what pushed him. Maybe it was the memory of Earth, or the sound of that terrified voice. Maybe it was because everyone else did nothing. While a child was about to be eaten alive, he threw off his jacket and jumped the rail. Gasps rose from the crowd. Guards shouted, too slow to react. Eli landed hard on the sandy floor. He winced but stood quickly, running toward Nira before the monster could reach her. The announcer's voice stuttered, unsure of what to say. This had never happened before. No one had ever broken the rules. No one had ever entered the arena willingly. Nira looked up, confused. "Don't touch me," she cried, thinking he was another guard. Eli knelt beside her and cut the ropes on her wrists with a hidden blade from his boot. "I'm here to help," he said, voice steady, eyes locked on the rising gate. A massive shadow filled the entrance. The monster's eyes glowed like burning stars. Its limbs were thick and armored, claws as long as blades. The crowd cheered again, not for the beast, but for the chaos. This was better than any show they'd seen before. Eli grabbed Nira's hand and pulled her up. "Run," he whispered, but she didn't move. "You'll die," she said, trembling. "They'll kill you for this." "I know," he said. Then turned toward the beast. The monster roared and stepped into the arena fully. Its mouth opened wide, rows of teeth shining under the lights. But it didn't charge, not yet. Eli raised his arms slowly. His heart raced, but he didn't back down. Something in the monster's eyes shifted. A flicker of recognition or hesitation. The crowd held breath, wondering if the beast would strike. Eli took a step forward. "I'm not your enemy," he said quietly, more to himself than the monster. "Not today." From above, guards loaded their weapons. The council members whispered among themselves, debating if they should stop the event. But the head elder shook his head. "Let it play out," he said coldly. "We'll deal with the human after." Nira stood frozen. Her legs refused to move. She stared at the man who had entered death's cage for her. Why would a stranger do that? Why would a human break every rule for someone he didn't know? The monster sniffed the air and took another step forward. It was close enough now that Eli could see the scars across its face. Ancient wounds from forgotten battles. It growled, but it didn't attack, and then the silence was broken by a single sound. A tear falling from Nira's face and hitting the ground. Eli didn't move, didn't blink. The crowd was no longer cheering, just watching, waiting to see what would happen next. The beast's muscles tensed, and somewhere deep in its throat, it made a strange sound. Not a roar, not a growl, but a purr. He shouldn't have moved. Everyone stood frozen. The beast was inches away from the human. Its breath was hot, its claws dug into the sand. One move could mean death, and yet, it didn't strike. The guards on the upper deck shouted into their coms, ordering backup. The council members stood up from their chairs, confused and angry. None of this was in the script. This was not how the sacrifice was supposed to go. Eli stood his ground. His boots were planted firm in the dirt. His arms stayed raised, showing no threat. He breathed slowly, eyes never leaving the monster's glowing stare. One wrong blink and it would all be over. Behind him, Nira whispered, "Why isn't it attacking?" Her voice cracked. Eli didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know either. A sharp voice screamed from the loudspeakers, "Get out of the arena now. This is your last warning." But Eli didn't move, not out of pride, but instinct. He could feel something inside the beast's stare, something old, something thinking. The crowd didn't cheer anymore. They leaned forward, silent, hands clenched. What was the human doing? Was he trying to tame it, or distract it so the girl could run? No one knew. Then it happened. A guard couldn't wait any longer. He raised his blaster and fired. The shot missed Eli by inches and struck the sand near the monster's foot. The beast flinched and let out a thunderous roar, shaking the stadium walls. Eli turned and shielded Nira, pulling her to the ground. Dust flew everywhere. Screams echoed. Panic broke the stillness like glass shattering on stone. The monster's eyes burned with rage now, but its gaze wasn't on the girl anymore. It focused on the humans above, the ones who had attacked. With a leap that cracked the ground, it lunged at the wall of the arena, claws digging into steel like it was soft wood. Guards scrambled, sirens blared, security shields rose too late. The beast climbed with terrifying speed, aiming straight for the shooters above. It had made its choice. Eli grabbed Nira's wrist. "Now we run," he said, dragging her toward the far wall. There was a narrow gap between the arena's edge and the machinery below, an old maintenance shaft he had seen during repairs. It wasn't safe, but it was a way out. Nira stumbled, her knees scraped and bleeding. "Why did you come for me?" she asked, breathless. "I don't even know you." Eli didn't stop running. "I don't need a reason to stop something." "Wrong," he said, "and no one deserves to die like this." Behind them, the monster roared again, this time from above, where it tore through metal and flung a guard from the ledge. The body hit the ground near Nira and rolled to a stop. Her eyes widened in horror. Eli yanked her back to focus. They reached the edge. Eli slammed a hidden control panel. The rusted door creaked open just enough for them to squeeze inside. Darkness swallowed them as the panel shut behind them. For a moment, there was only silence. Only the sound of two people breathing, hearts pounding in fear and confusion. Nira sat against the wall, arms wrapped around her knees. "They'll come after us," she said quietly. "They'll call us traitors. They already have." Eli replied, pulling a small flashlight from his belt. He looked around. The tunnel hadn't been used in years. Dust and cables lined the walls, but it would lead them away. At least for now. As they walked deeper, Nira spoke again. "The monster didn't eat you," she said. "Why?" Eli shook his head. "It looked at me like it remembered something. Like I wasn't just food." He paused. "Maybe it's not just a beast." The words hung heavy in the air. The idea was insane. But so was everything that had just happened. Outside, chaos spread through the arena. The council tried to regain control, but the beast was rampaging. It wasn't killing for fun. It was targeting the armed guards only, sparing the rest. That fact didn't go unnoticed by the crowd. Many in the stands began to ask questions. Why did the human protect the girl? Why didn't the monster kill him? Why were the ones in charge suddenly so afraid? Back in the tunnels, Nira stopped walking. You risked everything for me, she said. Her voice was soft now, almost shaking. Even if we live, they'll hunt you. Eli turned to face her. The narrow light cast shadows across his face. Then we stay hidden, he said. Until we find a way to show the truth. Nira blinked. What truth? Eli glanced back the way they came, thinking of the beast, thinking of the fear in the council's eyes. That none of this is what they say it is, he replied. Not the arena, not the monster, not the rules. Far above them, the stadium lights flickered. The creature let out another roar, but this one wasn't rage. It sounded like a warning. The monster paused. The sky was on fire above the arena. Smoke curled into the clouds, sirens echoed across the city, and the great alien beast stood still at the top of the broken wall. Not attacking, just watching. Its eyes scanned the panicked guards, then looked toward the sealed doors where the girl and the human had vanished. Something had changed in it, something that unsettled even the council. Inside the emergency chamber, Nira and Eli crept through the maintenance tunnel. The space was tight, the walls damp, and the lights flickered overhead like dying stars. The air smelled of old wires and forgotten oil. What now? Nira whispered, her voice barely above the hum of machinery. We can't stay down here forever. We're not going to, Eli replied, holding his flashlight steady. There's a control room up ahead. I saw it during repairs last month. It connects to the internal systems, maybe even surveillance. Nira glanced back nervously. Do you think it's coming after us? The beast, Eli said. No, I think it had a chance, and it chose not to take it. They reached a rusted door half covered in moss. Eli forced it open with a loud creak. Inside, a forgotten control station blinked to life. Screens lit up, showing camera feeds from every corner of the arena. The monster still hadn't moved. It just stood there, tail twitching slowly. Like it was thinking. Nira leaned closer to the screens. That's not normal, she whispered. They say that creature can't think. It just kills. They were wrong, Eli said firmly. He tapped on the screen, zooming in on the beast's face. Look at those eyes. That's not mindless rage. On another screen, the council was meeting behind closed doors. Their faces were pale, hands shaking. They argued fiercely, but the sound feed was cut. Still, one thing was clear: fear had entered their chamber for the first time. They're afraid of something, Nira said. And not just the monster. They're afraid of the truth, Eli replied. And the fact that someone broke the rules and survived it. Suddenly, one of the screens blinked. A new feed came online from a deep storage level of the facility. Eli's fingers froze on the controls. That's not part of the public grid, he said. What is this? The screen showed a room filled with tanks, each one glowing softly, and inside, floating in clear fluid, were creatures like the monster, smaller, younger versions. Sleeping peacefully, Nira gasped. There's more of them. Eli stared at the screen. They've been breeding them or keeping them hidden. Why? She asked, stepping back. Why would they lie to everyone? Control, Eli said quietly. Fear is power. If people believe the monster is a mindless threat, they'll accept any rule to stay safe. But if it's not a monster, Nira said slowly, if it's intelligent, if it chose not to kill, then the whole system falls apart. Eli finished. They stood in silence for a long moment. The only sound was the low hum of the power lines above. Then Nira turned toward him. We have to show this. We can't yet, Eli replied. Not until we know more. If we go public too soon, they'll erase us. On the main arena feed, the monster finally moved. But not to attack. Instead, it slowly lowered itself to the sand and lay down. Like a beast that had finished fighting, only this time, it hadn't fought at all. The crowd began murmuring again. Some shouted for blood, but others just stared in confusion. The silence grew louder than the chaos. It's waiting, Nira said. For something. Maybe it's waiting for us, Eli answered. At that moment, the door behind them beeped. Someone was trying to override the lock. Eli ran to the panel and slammed the override shut. He turned to Nira. We're out of time, she nodded. Then we find the truth, and we set it free. Eli picked up a small drive and plugged it into the console, copying footage from the secret lab, the control room, and the arena. This changes everything, he said. Behind them, the door shook again. Boots stomped in the hallway. Guards barking orders. They would breach it soon. Nira grabbed his arm. We run again. No, Eli said. This time we go up. He slammed a fist on a hidden panel, and a trapdoor opened above them, leading to the elevator shaft. They climbed fast, pulling each other through metal beams, ignoring the pain, their breath sharp, hearts pounding like drums of war. Back in the arena, the monster raised its head once more. It looked straight at the council box. Then it let out a single deep call, not a roar, but a sound like a forgotten language, a message no one could understand. But everyone could feel. The arena fell silent again. The beast was waiting, not for blood, but for justice. She wasn't what they said. The city screens lit up with flashes of the arena beast lying calm. Not moving, not killing, all across the alien world. People stared in disbelief. For the first time, the weekly sacrifice had not ended in blood, but in silence inside the tower's old elevator shaft. Eli and Nira climbed higher, hands scraped raw on rusted rails. Behind them, the sound of boots echoed faintly, but growing closer. The guards were searching, but they were moving upward where no one had gone in years. Eli pulled himself onto a narrow landing and reached down to help Nira. Almost there, he whispered. We need to get to the upper dome. There's a broadcast station there. If we plug in the files, everyone will see. Nira nodded, her breathing heavy. What if they shut it down? Then we'll shout it from the rooftops, he said. But someone will hear us. They moved fast, slipping through forgotten halls filled with dust and abandoned tech. Every screen they passed showed the monster still waiting, still refusing to play the part it had been forced into. The public had begun asking questions, and the council had no answers yet. Nira stopped at a broken window, looking out over the arena from high above. I was just a servant, she said softly. I cleaned data pads, fetched water. But one day I saw something I wasn't supposed to. Eli turned to her. What did you see? She swallowed hard. One of the council members, Counselor Breveth. He ordered a record deleted. A report saying the monster reacted to specific voices. He was afraid someone might figure it out. And you told someone, Eli guessed. Nira nodded slowly. I reported it to security. The next day I was arrested and told I'd stolen food. That I was to be the next sacrifice. Eli's fists tightened. So they silenced you with a death sentence. Everyone believed them, she said. Even my friends. They won't anymore. Eli replied, holding up the data drive. Not after today. They reached the broadcast dome. A huge round chamber with ancient consoles. Still glowing faintly, the city's main signal tower rose above it like a spine of glass. Flickering in and out of power. The place hadn't been used in decades, but it still worked. Eli moved quickly, plugging in the drive. The screens lit up, showing footage of the monster choosing not to attack, the hidden lab of younger beasts, and the audio logs from the council meetings. He turned to Nira. Ready, Nira nodded. Let's tell them the truth. He pushed the button across the planet. Every screen flickered and changed. The entertainment shows vanished, replaced by the raw footage. People stopped in streets, homes, ships, and markets, watching with wide eyes. Some gasped, others shouted. Some fell silent as the truth played. Out in full, in the council chambers, chaos erupted. Shut it down. Counselor Breveth screamed, cut the transmission. But the tech stared back at him. Frozen. We can't, one whispered. It's running from the old dome's core. It's locked in. Guards stormed into the chamber where Eli and Nira stood. But they were too late. The message was out. The truth had already escaped. The monster in the arena let out a low sound again, a mournful, deep echo that reached every ear tuned to the broadcast. Not just a beast's cry, but a voice long denied. Nira stepped forward, staring into the broadcast camera as the final file played. "My name is Nira," she said. "They called me a thief, but I only stole one thing, truth." Eli stood beside her. "This world was built on a lie. We've shown you just the start of it." "Ask yourselves," Nira said. "Why would a monster spare me? Why would it listen to him?" The feed ended. The silence that followed was the loudest sound the world had ever known. Later that night, hidden inside an old warehouse, Eli and Nira watched the streets from a broken window. The city wasn't burning, it wasn't rioting, it was whispering. People spoke in small groups, asking questions, doubting their leaders. Guards were no longer seen as protectors, but as enforcers of lies, and far below, in the heart of the arena, the monster still sat quietly waiting. "They haven't arrested us yet," Nira said. "No," Eli replied. "Because now they don't know who the enemy is." She looked at him. "You didn't have to help me. You didn't even know me." "I knew enough," he said. "I saw someone thrown away like trash, and I refused to let it happen." Nira smiled slightly. "You broke every rule. Then maybe the rules were broken already." Eli replied. A message beeped on an old device near the wall. Eli picked it up. His eyes widened slightly. "It's from someone inside the council." "What does it say?" Nira asked. "It says, 'Meet me at the base of the tower. I believe you, and I'm not the only one.'" One shot fired. Night covered the city like a heavy blanket. But the fires of truth had already started to burn. The monster in the arena still sat calmly, watching the world from behind unbreakable glass. It hadn't eaten, hadn't moved, but somehow it had changed everything. In the darkness near the base of the old tower, Eli and Nira waited in silence. Their eyes scanned every shadow, every rooftop, waiting for a trap or a signal. The message had said to come alone, but they had each other. A door creaked, and a tall alien stepped forward slowly. His face was worn with age, but his eyes were sharp with purpose. He wore a council robe, but not with pride. He raised both hands in peace. "My name is Vareen," he said. "I'm no longer with them." Eli kept one hand near his belt where a small tool knife waited. "Then why are you here?" Vareen glanced around carefully. "Because I saw the broadcast, and I believed it. And because Braveth has ordered your deaths by morning." Nira stepped forward. "You knew I was innocent." Vareen nodded slowly. "I did nothing. And that's what I'm ashamed of." Suddenly, a shout echoed across the alley. A bright beam of red light flashed through the night. A sniper shot. It missed Eli's head by inches and burned into the tower wall behind him. He shoved Nira down behind cover. Vareen dove behind crates. Another shot cracked the air. "Someone followed you." Eli shouted. "We've got to move." Nira crawled beside him, heart pounding. "He tried to kill you." "No," Eli said, eyes narrowing as he peeked over the crate. "He tried to scare us." Another shot rang out closer this time. The echo bounced between walls like a bell of war. The tower lights flickered to life, and sirens began wailing in the distance. Vareen stood up slowly, raising both arms. "Stop," he shouted. "This is Councilman Vareen. Hold your fire." The next shot didn't stop. It hit Vareen in the shoulder, spinning him backward into the wall. Nira screamed and rushed to him. Ayla dragged them both inside the tower's underground door just as another bolt of light exploded behind them. Inside, it was quiet again. Vareen grunted in pain, holding his wound. "They've sent Braveth's personal guard. They're not soldiers. They're assassins." Eli ripped part of his sleeve and pressed it against the wound. "Then we take the back tunnels. There's another entrance to the old beast labs through here." Vareen groaned. "There's more down there than you know." Eli paused. "What do you mean? The monster?" Vareen whispered. "It wasn't always a monster. It had a name once, a purpose. It was part of the Guardian Project, meant to protect us, not kill." Nira's eyes widened. "They turned it into a weapon." Vareen nodded weakly. Because peace didn't pay, but fear did. Walls shook slightly as footsteps pounded above them. The guards were moving fast, hunting them floor by floor. Eli led them through a narrow hall lit by failing lights. The metal hissed underfoot. Like it didn't want to be walked on, Nira held Vareen's arm tightly, helping him move. "We'll get the truth out," she said. "We already started. You don't understand." Vareen said, coughing. "They have more. Braveth plans to unleash the young ones in other cities. Blame it on rebels. Justify a full lockdown." Eli's heart dropped. "False. Flag attacks. They'll call it a new outbreak," Vareen said. "They'll ask for more control, and the people will beg them for it." They reached the lab entrance. Eli entered the code, and the heavy door slid open. Cold air rushed past them, and the room glowed with soft blue light. Rows of stasis tanks lined the walls. Inside each one, a smaller version of the arena beast floated silently. Nira stepped forward, hand trembling. "They're just sleeping." Eli looked at the controls. Barely alive, but not dead, not wild. Suddenly, one of the tanks flickered. The creature inside opened its eyes. It wasn't rage that stared back at them. It was fear. "They don't want this," Nira whispered. "They've been forced into this too." Eli turned to Vareen. "We shut it down, all of it, tonight." Vareen nodded. "There's a master control in the core beneath this lab. It controls the signal to every tank in the system." Outside, the floor above them, grown guards were nearly on them, but something had changed now. The truth wasn't just information anymore, it had become a weapon, and the world was listening. The truth beneath the arena's sand and stone. Far below the screaming crowds and glowing lights, there was a place no one remembered, a place the council never spoke of, a place where the truth slept in shadows too deep for daylight. Ele pushed open the final steel door. The hallway ahead buzzed with strange energy. Cables snaked across the walls like vines, humming softly as if alive. The deeper they went, the colder it became, and the more the walls seemed to whisper. Vareen limped beside them, one hand pressed to his wound. "This is where it began," he muttered. "Before the lies, before the fear." This was the heart of the project. Nira walked beside Eli, eyes wide at the glowing pods and silent machines. "It doesn't feel like a lab," she whispered. "It feels like a tomb." They entered a vast chamber, round and low-lit screens circled the walls, all blank except one. In the center stood a single chair, with thick wires leading into the floor. The console in front of it pulsed softly with blue light. Eli approached it slowly. "Is this the master control?" Vareen nodded. "Yes, if we shut it down, the command signals stop. The creatures won't follow any more orders, no attacks, no manipulation, just silence." Ele's fingers hovered over the console, but something made him stop. "What happens to the sleeping ones?" he asked. "Will they survive?" Vareen hesitated. "They've never lived without guidance. It's possible they'll wake up scared, confused, but it's better than being weapons." Nira looked toward one of the screens, which flickered to life. A video feed showed the arena monster still sitting silently. Its tail swayed slowly behind it. It wasn't angry. It looked like it was waiting. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the room, not mechanical, but clear and strange. "Are you human?" The three froze. Eli turned toward the screen where a face appeared, not the monster, but something behind its eyes, a soft glowing shimmer in the shape of a face, like data-given voice. "Who is that?" Nira whispered. "I am what remains," the voice said. "I was designed to learn, to protect, but I was taken. My mind broken into parts. My body fed lies, and my name erased." Eli stepped forward. "Do you remember what they did?" "I remember pain," it replied. "I remember silence. Then I saw you protect the girl. You didn't run. You didn't harm. That was different." Vareen stepped forward weakly. "If we shut down the system, what will happen to you?" "I will sleep," it said, "but not die. The others may wake too. We were not born to kill, but forced to." Eli turned to the console again. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Do you want that?" he asked. "To sleep again, free." The voice answered without hesitation. "Yes." Nira placed her hand on the console beside his. "Then do it." Eli pressed the command line. The lights dimmed for a moment. Then the screens blinked out one by one. The hum of cables died into silence, and the pressure in the air lifted. Like fog breaking at dawn, above in the arena, the beast stood slowly. It let out one long sound. Not a roar, but a tone low and soft. Then it turned toward the gates and began walking away. Not attacking, not raging. The crowd screamed, but not in fear. They screamed in shock, in wonder, in awe. Something inside them had cracked open. In the underground chamber, Eli turned to Vereen. "It's done." "No." Vereen said quietly, "It's only just begun." They moved quickly now, escaping through old cargo lifts, shadows covering their path. Alarms still rang through the facility, but no one stopped them, because the guards no longer knew who was in control. Back on the surface, the people gathered in the thousands, some climbing fences, others breaking down gates, not to riot but to see, to understand, to ask. The arena monster was gone, vanished into the hills beyond the city. No one chased it, because for the first time, they saw it not as a monster, but as a prisoner at the council chambers. Breveth shouted into cracked microphones, "Shut it all down, cut the feeds, seal the exits." But the screens didn't listen. The screens now answered to the people, and the people were no longer afraid. "The rules are broken forever." The first time the people entered the arena, they came without fear. There were no soldiers guarding the gates, no announcers shouting into microphones. Just families, workers, students, and elders standing in the place where screams used to echo. Now there was silence. The monster was gone, but its presence lingered like wind after a storm. In its absence, the arena felt smaller, not because it had changed, but because the people had. At the edge of the platform stood Eli, his face marked by dust and fatigue, but his eyes steady. Beside him, Nira held a data tablet displaying all the recordings, the council lies, the lab footage, the monster's voice, and the final shutdown command. They didn't run, they didn't hide. They stood where everyone could see them, above the place where it all began. "People of Vashtar," Nira said, her voice echoing through the open coms. "You were told I was a criminal, that I deserved to be thrown to a beast." She lifted her chin. "But I wasn't the only one thrown. That creature, the one you feared, it was never our enemy. It was our mirror." Eli stepped forward. "You saw me break the rules that day," he said, "but the truth is, the rules were already broken. They were written by those who wanted control, not justice." On the screens around the city, old footage played once more, showing the creature backing down, showing the hidden labs, the sleeping young, and the fear in the council's eyes. In the council tower, Breveth paced behind his desk, rage boiling beneath his skin. "And the broadcast now," he screamed, "before they turn on us." But his command center was empty. The guards had left. The staff had walked out, one by one. They had decided they would no longer serve lies back. In the arena, a woman in the crowd shouted, "Where is the monster now?" Nira answered, "Free, somewhere beyond the hills, just like us." Another voice cried, "What happens now?" Eli looked over the crowd. "That's up to you," he said. "No more sacrifices, no more silence. We speak, we build, and we remember." A young boy climbed over the railing and stood at the edge of the pit, where blood had once soaked the sand. He knelt and touched the earth, then looked up at Eli and smiled. It was a small act, but it started everything. The people began cheering, not for violence, not for victory, but for truth. For the courage it took to stand in front of a monster and say, "No more." Vereen watched from a hospital bed far away, his wound healing slowly. He smiled at the screen, then turned it off. For the first time in decades, he felt at peace. In a quiet cave beyond the hills, the great beast lay curled beneath the stars. It blinked slowly, watching insects drift past. The night was still, and for the first time in a long while, no commands whispered into its skull, no rage forced into its heart. It was alone, but it was free, and somewhere deep inside remembered the man who stood before it without fear, and the girl who cried not for her life, but for truth. The rules were broken that day, not by destruction, but by defiance. And because one human chose to protect instead of punish, a world was changed forever. The end.